Dating has never been easier and yet harder at the same time. We're going to dive into this conversation today. I know right off the bat, if you read the title, you're thinking to yourself, Jonathan, how can dating be easier than ever before? Well, I'm going to share something with you that is ridiculously obvious, and yet so few people actually embody what I'm about to share. Because if we turn back the clock, say 30 years ago, now we're in 2025. If we go back to the late 1990s, before the internet, well, before we actively use the internet, and certainly before we had these things called smartphones, we actually met people out most often in an organic way. And I know many of you saying, well, that's exactly what I want. I want to meet in an organic way. And if we certainly turn back the clock 50, 100, and hundreds of years ago, the reality is when we mated with someone, it was most likely in the town we lived in, the village we lived in, the tribe we lived in. And that person we mated with most likely shared our values, shared our cultures. Probably from a socioeconomic perspective, we shared a lot of things. And so it made it rather easy. And many people are looking back and going, I want it like that. I want it easier. I want it something where it just happens. We just happen to bump into each other, or maybe we knew each other from barely a degree of separation. And yet, if we look at our lives today, we're addicted to our smartphones. We're not addicted to, but our lives aren't in an environment, particularly those of us in midlife, where we're surrounded by single eligible people. In fact, if you're over 45 years old and you're watching this and you don't use online dating, you don't use any social media, you don't do anything, the likelihood of you actually attracting a life partner, to bump into a life partner, might be if a burglar happens to come to your home to steal your television set and sees you on the couch and says, wow, you're cute. Would you like to go out on a date? You have a greater chance of that happening. I think some people even say you have a greater chance of being hit by lightning than having it happen in an organic way. And so that's the reality we faced in. We're not around single eligible people on a regular basis. Now, I know you've heard people say, well, join meetup groups, do the things you love, just put yourself out there and you'll meet people in that type of environment. And certainly that happens, much like a broken clock. It's right twice a day. Certainly, if you make heroic effort to put yourself out there surrounded by people on a regular basis, you can connect with people. There's no doubt about it. So in that case, why is it easier than ever before? Well, I want you to think about this. Actually, 50 plus years ago, if you were 45 years old and single, you know what? That was almost considered a death sentence. Now, people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and even 70s are finding love more than ever before. In fact, if you watch the Golden Bachelor and the Golden Bachelorette, it's emphasizing that this age bracket has a lot to give. And so it isn't a death sentence to be 40, 50, 60, and even 70 years old and wanting to find a life partner, wanting to find love in our lives. And the reality is, it is easier because now we have access to something where we can literally, at our fingertips, start doing the walking, start doing the talking. The problem is, many people are doing it naively, arrogantly, and ambivalently. I'm going to repeat that: naively, ambivalently, or arrogantly, because they haven't really mastered the understanding of what human pair bonding is all about. See, human pair bonding is about compatibility. Do we share the same values? Do we have the same vision for a relationship? Are our lifestyles blendable with one another? And most importantly, and believe it or not, is this person even emotionally mature enough to be in a relationship? Does this person have the relationship skills to be in a relationship? And so this matters more. And the problem is that we are operating from this fantasy, that attraction, entertainment, romance, and physical connection is the pathway to relationship success, without really understanding that if you want to have successful relationship, it requires alignment with another person, alignment. As I said before, shared values. Besides honesty, integrity, and trust, which we all pretty much want to adhere to, each individual has their own values on certain things when it comes to money, when it comes to charity, when it comes to health, when it comes to family. Everybody has their own nuanced approach to values. And for each person, even the slightest difference can create relationship friction. I'm going to repeat that, the slightest difference. In fact, it's those differences that often cause relationship discourse. And yet, from a dating perspective, everybody's naively operating. Let's just have a good time. Let's focus on having a good time. Let's just have a good time. And certainly, there's an entitled group of people. I see women on TikTok expecting grand gestures from a man on a first date whom they don't know each other. And yet, there's this expectation of grand gesture. And sadly, men operate from that selfish perspective of wanting physical intimacy well before trust has been built. If you're a man watching this, you've got to own that you've oftentimes chased sex before any real trust has been built with a person. And because of this, we operate with this naive, arrogant, ambivalent approach to dating, mating, or relating. And so, if we want to maximize our opportunities, because I said dating has never been easier before, quite frankly, we have access to people that we wouldn't otherwise have access to on our daily lives if we start utilizing these resources in a more productive way. And because we have unlimited access, we also have overwhelming options. I mean, in fact, it can drive you crazy. I was talking to a client yesterday. She literally has 544 men in her like box on Bumble, the dating app. Now, a lot of men were going, God, I wish I had that many women interested in me. I get that. Women oftentimes get swiped right far more than the other way around. And there's a criticism that women are too picky. They're over selective. But quite frankly, we should be picky and over selective, not for the wrong reasons, but to be selective to determine, do we share the same values? Do we have the same relationship vision? And let me talk about relationship vision for a moment. If you watch my channel, you know I'm a big proponent of life partnership-based relationships. Life partner. In other words, two people meeting because they genuinely want a life partner, somebody that they want to live with or they want to get married. And marriage doesn't have to be a legal marriage. It can be a spiritual marriage as well. That's the emphasis of my channel, because anything less is oftentimes a casual relationship. Anything less is a situationship. Anything less is a friends with benefits. And anything less is oftentimes just hooking up. But Jonathan, we should just be focused on fun. It should all be about fun. In fact, I'm a woman. I'm supposed to sit my feminine energy and let the man lead because men are such good leaders of relationship. As I said before, if a man only cares about sex, ladies, you have to be far more discerning than ever before. By the way, if you're a woman or a man that needs help with discernment, there's a link below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. That's my whole area of expertise, is teaching discernment. So as I said before, it's easier than ever before because now we have access to a communication tool yet that we didn't have access before. We can literally sit on our couch and communicate with people. For us guys, we can sit on the toilet and communicate people. We certainly have access through email, text messaging, instant messaging, social media connections. And yet at the same time, those connections can seem rather shallow, or worse, coming back to the overwhelming perspective, because people are talking to multiple people at the same time. See, the good news is, and why I say dating is easier than never before, and harder at the same time, is we are now at least operating with more of a self-growth culture. And yet, sadly, at the same time, we have unrealistic standards and fantasy for so many people. You know, I've observed that being relationship ready means your desire capacity, and vision for a relationship exceeds your fears, your past hurts, your fantasies, or vanity. Fantasies and vanity are those unrealistic expectations, those unrealistic standards, this desire to have someone better than us without looking in the mirror and recognizing that, and please forgive me, but our market value, I think sadly, most people overvalue themselves in the capacity of what they can attract from a physical perspective, certainly from a financial perspective. And some would say those things don't matter, but on quite frankly, somebody having a stable lifestyle and the resources to support themselves is radically important in the dating marketplace today. So, one of the things is, I think we have to consider, safety. When it comes to dating, I think it's really important to look at our emotional safety as well as our physical safety. So with that in mind, a lot of people overfilter, they're almost too picky because they're operating from a place of fear in the past. And yet at the same time, we have access to people. It just requires being a bit more discerning than ever before. Now, I recognize in our environment today, unlike 50 years ago, we had social proof of somebody's quality, their character. We didn't have 6 degrees of separation. We literally had 0 degrees of separation because oftentimes we connected with people we knew in our lives. And because of this is causing an over performance pressure. In other words, having to perform, having to prove oneself, climb to the highest room of the tallest tower in many cases, because there's no social proof. There's no real familiarity with this person. In fact, in many cases, we're meeting total strangers and recognizing that this is a challenge. But at the same time, again, you're having access to people you wouldn't otherwise have access into your lives. I think today's dating also, we have a challenge with empowerment roles versus the traditional roles. Let me repeat that. Empowerment roles versus traditional roles. See, thankfully, women are empowered today. They're no longer gone are the days women are dependent upon men for their financial or security. And thankfully, that's the case. But a lot of men out in the dating marketplace espouse to some traditional roles that they won't adhere to anyway. And a lot of women that are empowered are creating a lot of barriers around men because they've been hurt or burned in the past. But I'm here to say we are in an environment. Thank God, women are more empowered more than ever before. And to the men watching this is a good thing. I know you red pill guys criticize the feminist movement over and over and over again, but thankfully women are empowered because it keeps you men in check. See, a lot of you men are controlling creatures. It's my way or the highway. And you know what? Women are saying, I'm not going to put up with that anymore. In fact, it's one of the reasons why women initiate divorce more than men, because men, once they nest into a relationship, they become radically lazy to the growth of the relationship. And I'm here to say, thank God, women are more empowered than ever before. Guys, you want an empowered woman in your life, not some doormat, because quite frankly, that doormat woman will get tiresome very quickly at some point in your life. I do want to say we are struggling with analysis paralysis instead of taking value with the information that we get today. It's time to I jokingly say interrogate people, but to operate from a place of radical honesty. We can do this now that we didn't do this before. Ladies, you can ask those radically difficult questions early on to determine compatibility, shared values, shared vision, lifestyle blendability, and most importantly, emotional maturity. See, Because we have freedom of choice, we also operate from a place of fear of missing out. I know many of you have experienced this, the fear of missing out. And yet at the same time, I believe that the opportunities to find love, particularly if you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and even 70s, has increased exponentially than the way it was 40 or 50 years ago. Hey, by the way, most people are healthier than ever before. They're biohacking. They're being nutritionally mindful. I mean, certainly, I'm seeing women, just even watch the Golden Bachelor or Golden Bachelorette. I'm seeing women in their 60s that look like they're 40s today. What a great opportunity we live in. And yes, at the same time, it's harder, which requires this. Look at whether you like it or not, the Disney fantasy that a relationship should just fall in your lap, that's gone by the wayside. In fact, your relationship is probably the most important decision you're going to make in your life, and it should be as equally as hard as getting your PhD in college. So many of you operate from this. It should just be served up on a platter for me. And I'm here to say, if you want something like a juicy, delicious, healthy, happy relationship, then you're going to have to put in Herculean effort. And if you don't want to do that, that's okay. You can settle for mediocrity. You can be pounding your head up against the wall. But when I talk about the books I recommend reading on my channel, like The Hoffman Process or 8 Dates by John and Julie Hoffman or Gottman, when I recommend these books, it's designed to make you better prepared to be in a significant relationship. And it's going to require work. It's going to require learning discernment. It's going to require learning flirting skills. It's going to require learning good communication skills. If you have never read the book, The Hoffman Process by Marshall Rosenberg, I'm telling you, you have to read this. Otherwise, you're going to be beating your head up against the wall. And by the way, both men and women should be reading this before the penis goes inside the vagina. Folks, instead of focusing on attraction, entertainment, romance, and physical connection, I'm here to suggest that you build the skills so you can be in a healthy, happy relationship. And I'm speaking from personal experience here because I'm telling you, I've done a lot of work in the last 20 years to be prepared for the relationship I'm in, and I'm still scared. I'm still scared I'll screw it up, but I'm better prepared than ever before because I've done the work. And here's my invitation for you all to do the inner work to be better prepared and to recognize that online dating is a great opportunity to meet people. It's harder than it's hard. It's hard. But guess what? Be grateful we have this, because I'm telling you, without it, there'd be a lot, believe me, there are a lot more single people that would never have met if it wasn't for this medium. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know. I'd like to hear your thoughts on what I just shared. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And if you want to connect with me directly, hey, there's a link right there. Schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. Check out my links to join my group, follow me on social media, and make sure you get my dating vows listed below.